Hello and welcome everybody. Today I would like to talk about everything that we know so far about one of the new features that are going to be coming to Victoria 3. Today's topic are diplomatic catalysts. This new feature will be coming to Victoria 3 on the 24th of June and hopefully enhance AI behavior by quite a lot, as well as making it easier to understand why the AI does things in the first place. So, since this topic will probably require some explanations that go further than what the dev diary goes through, let's jump in without any further ado. Diplomatic catalysts is a term for a wide range of diplomatic occurrences. It already came up in the last video when we talked about political lobbies, as diplomatic catalysts can also trigger those. These diplomatic catalysts can be positive or negative. So what this means is that a diplomatic catalyst can be the following things: relationships entering a new level, like going from cordial to amicable, for example, subjects having their level of autonomy changed, or country government ideologies no longer aligning at all. Obviously, it also includes direct diplomatic actions, such as breaking or entering pacts or declaring a country your rival. It even goes a bit further, with things like declaring bankruptcy also counting as a diplomatic catalyst. Now, when an event transpires that qualifies as a diplomatic catalyst, there is at all times a chance that a political lobby is created. This lobby could be formed in either or even in both countries that are involved in this catalyst's effect. Here, there can be a ton of variation. We talked about lobbies in the last video of this short series, so if you're a bit lost on what it means when a lobby is created, definitely make sure to go check that out. Anyway, certain diplomatic catalysts can trigger only positive lobbies to appear, whereas others can, for example, have a chance to lead to either a positive or a hostile lobby. This means that as you take your actions organically in the game, your interest groups always have a chance to take notice and potentially take a strong stance one way or another. The same is true for other countries taking actions. If a third country, for example, starts allying your rival, maybe there will be a lobby popping up in your country that opposes that third country. The aforementioned ideological divergence diplomatic catalyst, for example, so the catalyst in which the government of your own country and that of a different nation happen to be totally opposing to each other ideologically, could lead to a lobby that either loves the other country's government and despises your own and seeks a realignment, or a lobby that hates the other country's government and wants you to stay far away from it. This means, thanks to this event, either a positive or a hostile lobby can both be founded here. Now, what is important to keep in mind here, because that is of course what it means, is that it is going to be very unlikely that this ideological catalyst will push your industrialists into a friendly lobby for a communist country. Quite the opposite, really. Diplomatic catalysts do not just check for what lobbies could possibly be created, but also for what interest groups would actually have a realistic interest in joining any given type. This means that for a lobby creation to occur after a catalyst was triggered, the surrounding conditions must also fit. There must be at least one non-marginalized interest group that wants to join a lobby, and that interest group must actually have a believable reason to join such a lobby. Now, the implications as far as catalysts and lobbies are concerned are really interesting. This means that if you, the market liberal leader of the free world, trigger a catalyst based on the fact that your neighbor just went hard communist, you might get a hostile lobby made up of the industrialists that can further help you cement industrialist rule, or you might get a friendly lobby made up of your communist trade unions that wants you to play nice and eventually, of course, also play communist. Now, if what takes place is the latter version here, so you get a communist lobby that wants to be friendly to the communist country, this would mean that all of a sudden it would be very easy for you to anger the trade unions, as you might have laws that they already hate, and now they are also agitating against the country they want to gain as a friend, a country that you very likely want to oppose. This means that under normal conditions without the lobby, you might be able to pass a couple of laws that they hate but they don't really fully want to revolt yet, but with that lobby, unless you do as they say, they might rebel over even a fairly trivial law. This is really interesting because it means that we can stabilize or destabilize other countries by founding lobbies in their countries and then making sure that we're either becoming friends or enemies with that country. I find that really interesting because, well, yep, our lobby can directly contribute to making sure that a different country stays stable or indeed starts falling apart. Now, lobby creation is only one side of the coin for diplomatic catalysts here. It's cool, sure, but as somebody that has modded AI strategies quite a lot in the past, what comes next sounds much more exciting. Here's the short of it. If you've played Victoria 3, you will have seen certain AI attitudes towards your country that seem to change seemingly at random. Oftentimes it kind of makes sense, but more often than not, why an attitude has changed is barely if at all communicated to the player. This can mean that a country that you were working together with for 30 years has suddenly decided to see you as an enemy, just because some invisible switch flipped. Now, the bad news here obviously is that it really sucks when it is completely opaque why the AI makes any given choice. The good news is that even in the current Victoria 3 version, it isn't actually random at all. The game features a set of lengthy script files that detail how countries should behave in general, with certain strategies and, of course, based on the conditions around them, like their rank, their technology, whether they are recognized, or their journal entries impacting what exactly they want to do. There is an incredible amount of consideration behind what the AI does. And I basically always go, oh yeah, that's as expected. But most players have no insight whatsoever into this process as of right now. I can tell you, for example, that there is script that tells the AI that should a different nation take more than just a treaty port in China, so an entire state, all of a sudden the AI might also want to eat states, kind of to balance out a player running ahead with a ton of population in China. None of this stuff, though, is communicated. If you are China, if you lose an entire state, you might be curious why your long-term foreign ally all of a sudden turns against you. Of course, there are also other elements that are fairly obvious, but, well, that you don't really have that much insight into unless you've seen the script. For example, the way Germany flips. Prussia will all of a sudden become incredibly aggressive once around 1840 rolls around, because that is when they get the journal entry, and with that the diplomatic strategy to unify Germany. From there on out, there can be no negotiation. If you're Austria, you will become their enemy, even if before that you manage to become a very strong ally. To me, having seen the script, it makes sense. It feels kind of cagey even for me, because it means that as Austria, I know that I will have to fight Prussia and that there is nothing I can do about it. But for everybody else, it kind of just happens. It's never really explained. Another caveat with the way this currently works is that the AI selects a new AI strategy and with that reconfigures its strategic desires towards other countries logically as well, but only when an internal progress bar hits 100. This progress bar is triggered by all sorts of things. Basically, a large chunk of the things that you can do in the game make it so that the progress bar might progress. Once it hits 100, it doesn't mean that the AI strategy necessarily changes, but it does mean that at that point, they will be evaluating whether it should be changing. If, for example, the Manifest Destiny journal entry is activated in a United States of America that has up to then been an ally of Mexico, they are suddenly highly likely to become conquest-oriented despite this previously positive relationship, but only once they hit the 100% progress bar. Now, in 1.7, countries no longer check what to do once the bar hits 100%. Instead, catalysts are now specifically geared towards dynamically impacting events based on their actual nature. Where previously a pact being broken would only indirectly impact the course of action that would follow, as it really only changed the relation and pushed the progress bar forward that you can't see and that is internal to the AI, it now has a direct chance to change AI behavior, similar to catalysts being able to lead to the foundation of lobbies. This means that breaking an alliance with your long-term ally is not simply going to leave the AI scared and confused until it happens to hit the progress bar limit that then allows it to evaluate its long-term desire, but rather makes it so that the act of breaking the alliance itself directly leads to a re-evaluation. This means that diplomatic catalysts should, generally, make it so that the AI behavior will feel more context-informed and snappier. As every friendly action that you take informs the strategic desire of the other nation, each diplomatic action should be much more meaningful than they are currently. The developers have also taken steps to actually ensure that the AI decision-making here is visible to you. This means that change behavior is visible in the moment the change occurs, while also detailing what exactly triggered it. This is continued as the attitude is also actually displayed in the attitude tooltip, where previously the strategic desire tooltip was a mere afterthought that most players weren't even really aware of. It is now showcased very consciously. Look, folks, I was wondering whether I should even make a video about this particular dev diary when it came up. At the end of the day, the change to underlying AI logic and better UX around it isn't really that big a deal in the eyes of the player. But I will tell you right now, having spent as much time with AI strategy in general as I have, I cannot stress enough just how important this change actually is. To sum it up, for many months now, I and others in the community have yearned for more dynamic AI strategies, as the relative timidity and sluggishness of the AI means that, more often than not, literally nothing happens. Or, if something happens, it just seems nonsensical. This is especially true if, for example, the AI gets a one-minded mission like the USA and Manifest Destiny. Currently, once they pick up their journal entry, they will attack Mexico relentlessly, time and time again, which also means that you can't really do all that much to change their strategic desire. There are, so to speak, no off-ramps from AI strategy behavior. The addition of diplomatic catalysts is huge to me, as it promises to address this and the general sluggishness of the AI. Rather than general underlying impulses, dynamic decision-making based on how your relationship with the AI has developed should play a much bigger role. If you've been playing this game and you've told yourself, well, basically every game the same thing happens or very little happens in general, then this right here should give you a lot of hope, because this should make it so that AI strategies and AIs in general can act much more consciously and maybe more importantly, just more dynamically, corresponding to whatever is going on in your particular playthrough. Rather than Prussia losing the Brothers' War and then literally doing nothing else for the remaining entire time span of the game, they should be looking into doing something else going forward. Now, it does remain to be seen how exactly this plays and whether it really fulfills all of these hopes. But this topic that on the surface might seem pretty boring is really vital in my eyes, and I hope that this is going to be the first big step into the right direction towards an AI that is dynamic, that can react, that can basically do some improvisation as well, and most importantly, react directly to whatever is actually going on, rather than to general vibes whenever their internal bar fills. Folks, let me know what you think about all of this. I will leave you right here, however, and see you in the next Victoria 3 feature overview video. We will be talking about the great game, narrative content that will be coming to the game as well. For now, I will see you later, alligator.